This young teacher is about to be destroyed by an AI fake video so realistic that no one can tell the difference. But she had prepared something that the bully never expected. How does a 23-year-old teacher defeat AI technology? Stay tuned. The hallways of Jefferson High School in Dallas, Texas buzzed with the kind of energy that only comes the first week of school. New sneakers squeaked against polished floors. Locker doors slammed shut like gunshots. The smell of fresh paint mixed with cafeteria pizza hung in the air. Savannah Miller stood outside classroom 207, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped her lesson plans. At 23, she looked more like a senior student than a teacher. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore a simple blue blazer that she hoped made her look more authoritative. But this wasn't just any school. Jefferson High was football country, where the star quarterback got more respect than the principal, and the cheerleader captain had more social power than most teachers. Savannah knew the statistics. She knew that young teachers, especially women, faced unique challenges. What she didn't know was that she was about to face something no education degree could have prepared her for. She took a deep breath and pushed open the door. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. 28 pairs of eyes turned toward her, some curious, some bored, some openly skeptical. In the back row, a tall, broad-shouldered boy with sandy brown hair leaned back in his chair. Derek Anderson, 17 years old, captain of the football team, and the kind of student who could make or break a new teacher's reputation in a single class period. "Good morning, everyone," Savannah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm Miss Miller, and I'll be your English teacher this year." A few students mumbled responses. Derek said nothing, but his eyes never left her face. There was something calculating in his stare, like a predator sizing up prey. "Let's start with introductions," Savannah continued. "Tell me your name and one thing you're passionate about." The exercise went smoothly until it reached Derek. He stood up slowly, all 6 feet 2 inches of him, and looked directly at Savannah with a slight smirk. "Derek Anderson," he said, his voice carrying across the room with practiced confidence. "And I'm passionate about knowing when someone doesn't belong somewhere." The classroom fell silent. A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Savannah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but maintained her composure. "That's interesting. Derek, what made you passionate about that?" Derek's smirk widened. "Experience. Miss Miller, see, when you've been at a school for 4 years, you develop an eye for spotting things that don't fit. People who think they can just walk in and command respect without earning it." The message was clear. The gauntlet had been thrown down in front of the entire class. Savannah had 2 choices: back down and lose all authority, or stand her ground and risk escalating the conflict. "Well, Derek," she said, meeting his stare directly, "I suppose we'll both get to learn something new this year. You'll learn about literature, and I'll learn about earned respect. Now, please, take your seat." For a moment, Derek didn't move. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then he sat down, but the smirk never left his face. The rest of the class period passed without incident. But Savannah could feel Derek's eyes on her every move. When students worked quietly, he whispered to his friends. When she turned to write on the board, she heard muffled laughter from his corner of the room. After the students filed out, Savannah slumped into her chair. Her teaching mentor had warned her about students who would test boundaries. But this felt different. This felt personal. What she didn't know was that Derek Anderson was, indeed, making it personal. As he walked to his next class, his mind was already working. He pulled out his phone and opened the group chat with his teammates. "Guys," he typed, "we got ourselves a situation with the new English teacher. Time to show her how things work around here." The responses came quickly. "What's the plan, Cap?" "She cute, though. Might go easy on her." "Nah," Derek typed back. "Respect is earned, not given. Especially not to some college girl who thinks she can walk in here and run our class." But Derek's campaign went beyond typical teenage rebellion. While his friends thought in terms of paper airplanes and disrupted lessons, Derek's mind worked differently. He was tech-savvy in ways that would have surprised his teachers, and he had been researching things online that most 17-year-olds never even heard of. That afternoon, Derek sat in his bedroom, laptop open, diving deeper into forums and websites that existed in the shadowy corners of the internet. He had discovered something called deep fake technology a few months earlier. Initially out of curiosity about special effects in movies. But as he learned more, he realized the potential for something much more powerful. The technology had become surprisingly accessible. Apps that once required professional expertise were now available to anyone with a smartphone and enough patience to learn. Derek had that patience in abundance, especially when it came to something that could give him power over others. Meanwhile, Savannah was having her own after-school conversation with Harper Davis, a fellow English teacher who had taken her under her wing. Harper was 31, with curly red hair and the kind of confidence that came from surviving 8 years in public education. "Rough first day?" Harper asked, settling into the chair across from Savannah's desk. "There's this student, Derek Anderson, football captain. He basically challenged my authority in front of the entire class." Harper nodded knowingly. "Derek? Yeah, he's complicated. Smart kid, actually. Smarter than he lets on, but he's got some issues with authority figures, especially women. Any advice?" "Document everything," Harper said firmly. "Every interaction, every disruption, every comment. I know it sounds paranoid, but trust me, evidence is power in this business." Savannah made a mental note, but she was thinking bigger picture. She had always been analytical by nature, a trait that had served her well in college. Her minor in computer science wasn't just for fun. It had been practical in today's digital age. Teachers needed to understand technology almost as much as their students did. What Savannah didn't share with Harper was her other skill set during her senior year of college. Her older brother had started a small tech company focused on detecting fake content online. The business had struggled, but not before Savannah had spent countless hours learning about digital forensics, metadata analysis, and the telltale signs of manipulated media. It was a hobby that had turned into genuine expertise, though she had never imagined it would be relevant to her teaching career. The next morning brought a new kind of challenge. When Savannah arrived at school, she found that someone had created a meme featuring her face photoshopped onto various images, all shared in a group chat that somehow included half the senior class. The images weren't inappropriate, but they were designed to mock her appearance and inexperience. The message was clear: we can reach you anywhere, anytime. During lunch, Harper found Savannah staring at her phone in the faculty lounge. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Savannah showed her the screenshots a concerned student had sent her. Harper's expression darkened. "This is harassment. We need to report this to Principal Williams immediately." "Will it help? I mean, Derek's the star athlete. I'm just the new teacher who can't control her classroom." "Don't think like that," Harper said firmly. "But you're right that we need to be strategic. Start documenting this, too. Screenshots, timestamps, witnesses. Build a case that can't be ignored." That afternoon, Savannah found herself in Principal Williams's office. David Williams was 54 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen every kind of school drama imaginable. He listened patiently as Savannah presented the memes and explained the classroom incident. "Derek's a good kid at heart," he said finally. "High achiever, college-bound, never been in serious trouble. Sometimes these situations resolve themselves if we give them time." Savannah felt her heart sink. "So, you'll talk to him?" "I'll have a conversation. Yes, but, Savannah, between you and me, you need to establish classroom authority quickly. Students can sense uncertainty, and they'll exploit it." The conversation felt like a polite dismissal. As Savannah walked back to her classroom, she realized she was truly on her own in this fight. What she didn't see was Derek listening around the corner, his sharp hearing catching every word of their conversation. His smirk returned as he pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. "Talk to principal. Nothing happened. Time for phase 2. That evening, Derek made a breakthrough with the deepfake technology. After weeks of experimentation with random faces from the internet, he successfully created his first truly convincing fake video. The subject was a random person from a stock photo, but the quality was disturbingly realistic. As he watched the artificial person say words they had never spoken, Derek felt a rush of power unlike anything he had experienced before. This wasn't just pranks or social media harassment, this was digital omnipotence. He began planning his next move. The following day, Derek escalated his campaign. During Savannah's class, he and his friends engaged in a coordinated effort of small disruptions, nothing dramatic enough to warrant immediate discipline, but a constant drip of defiance designed to erode her authority. "Miss Miller," Derek said during a lesson on symbolism in literature, "do you think the author really intended all these hidden meanings? Or are English teachers just making stuff up to sound smart?" The question was phrased cleverly, sounding almost legitimate while carrying an obvious insult. Several students laughed. "That's an excellent question, Derek," Savannah replied calmly. "Literary analysis is about examining evidence within the text to support interpretations. Just like in any investigation, the evidence has to be solid and verifiable." She emphasized the word evidence, hoping Derek would catch the subtle message that she was building a case against him. If he did understand, he didn't show it. After class, Derek lingered behind as the other students filed out. For a moment, Savannah hoped he might apologize, or at least call a truce. Instead, he approached her desk with that same calculating look. "Miss Miller," he said quietly, "you seem like someone who values honesty." "I do." "Then I'll be honest with you. You don't belong here. You're too young, too inexperienced, and too naive to handle a place like Jefferson High. The sooner you realize that and find another career, the easier this will be for everyone." Savannah felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her voice steady. "And if I don't take your advice," Derek's smile was cold, "then you'll learn the hard way that some battles can't be won with good intentions and lesson plans." He turned and walked away, leaving Savannah with the distinct impression that he had just issued a threat. That weekend, Savannah decided to investigate Derek more thoroughly, using techniques she had learned during her digital forensics training. She began mapping his online presence. What she found was sophisticated and troubling. Derek maintained multiple social media accounts under different names. He was active in several online communities focused on technology and digital manipulation. Most concerning of all, she found evidence that he had been experimenting with AI-generated content for months. The pieces of a terrifying puzzle began falling into place. On Monday morning, Derek made his move. He approached Savannah after her first period class, when the hallway was empty except for a few students at their lockers. "Miss Miller?" he said, his voice casual but his eyes intense. "I want to show you something." He pulled out his phone and showed her a video. At first glance, it appeared to be a recording of a woman who looked remarkably like Savannah doing something embarrassing in what appeared to be a college setting. The quality was good enough that anyone who didn't look closely would assume it was real. But Savannah had spent hundreds of hours analyzing digital media. She could see the subtle inconsistencies in the lighting, the slightly unnatural movement of facial features, the telltale signs of AI generation. "Impressive technology," she said, keeping her voice level despite her racing heart. "The facial mapping is quite sophisticated." Derek's confident expression faltered for just a moment. He had expected shock, fear, maybe tears. He hadn't expected technical analysis. "The point is," he said, regaining his composure, "imagine if this was you, and imagine if everyone in school saw it. Your career would be over before it started." "Is that a threat?" "Derek, it's a reality check. You have 48 hours to submit your resignation to Principal Williams. If you don't," he gestured to the phone. "Well, social media has a way of making things go viral very quickly." Savannah stared at him for a long moment. 48 hours. 48 hours, Derek confirmed. "And, Miss Miller, I'd think very carefully about trying to fight this. You have no idea what you're up against." As Derek walked away, Savannah felt the full weight of the situation crash down on her. She was facing a 17-year-old who had weaponized artificial intelligence against her career, her reputation, and her future. But Derek had made one crucial mistake. He had assumed that his young teacher was as naive about technology as she appeared. He had no idea that Savannah Miller had spent her college years learning to detect exactly the kind of manipulation he was threatening her with. The war between artificial intelligence and digital detective work was about to begin. That afternoon, Savannah began her own investigation in earnest. Using advanced reverse image searching and metadata analysis, she started tracing Derek's digital footprints more aggressively. What she found in his posting history made her heart break even as it terrified her. Buried deep in old forum posts, she discovered that Derek Anderson hadn't started as a bully. He had been a victim. 3 years earlier, when Derek was 14, someone had discovered that his family was struggling financially. His father had abandoned them due to gambling debts, leaving his mother to work multiple jobs to keep their house. Derek had hidden this secret carefully, maintaining his popular image at school while his family fought to survive. But the internet had found him anyway. Anonymous trolls had created cruel deep-fake videos of Derek's mother, mocking her appearance and making up humiliating scenarios about their poverty. The harassment had been relentless and devastating. Derek had learned to create deepfakes not as an aggressor, but as a victim trying to fight back against his tormentors. The realization hit Savannah like a physical blow. The boy threatening to destroy her career was himself a victim of the exact same technology he was now wielding against her. He had learned digital warfare not from malice, but from pain. But that knowledge didn't change the fact that in less than 48 hours, Derek Anderson was planning to release a fake video that would end her teaching career before it truly began. As she sat in her empty classroom that evening, Savannah faced the most important decision of her young life. She could expose Derek's secret and destroy him the same way he was threatening to destroy her. She could take her evidence to the police and let them handle it, or she could try something that no one would expect. She could try to save them both. The clock on her wall ticked toward Derek's deadline. In less than 24 hours, everything would change forever. The only question was whether it would end in mutual destruction or mutual redemption. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. 24 hours left, Miss Miller. I hope you've made your decision. Savannah stared at the message, then at her computer screen filled with evidence of Derek's own victimization. Tomorrow would determine not just her future, but the future of a 17-year-old boy who had learned to hurt others because he had been hurt first. The final countdown had begun. 23 hours and 47 minutes. Savannah Miller sat in her apartment, surrounded by printed screenshots, timeline documents, and 2 laptops displaying Derek Anderson's digital history. The evidence she had gathered could destroy him completely. One email to Principal Williams with the right attachments, and Derek would face criminal charges for creating deepfake pornography, harassment, and cyberbullying. But every time she reached for her phone to make that call, she saw the image that had changed everything of 14-year-old Derek, posting desperately in victim support forums, begging someone to help him stop the fake videos destroying his mother's reputation. The hunter had become the hunted. The victim had become the aggressor. And now Savannah had to decide whether to continue the cycle or break it. Her phone buzzed. Harper Davis. How are you holding up? Harper's voice was gentle but concerned. I found something about Derek. Something that changes everything. What do you mean? Savannah took a deep breath. He's not just a bully, Harper. He's a victim who learned to fight back using the same weapons that were used against him. 3 years ago, someone created deep-fake videos of his mother. Horrible, humiliating stuff about their poverty. Derek learned this technology to defend himself. There was silence on the other end of the line. Savannah, Harper said finally, that's tragic, but it doesn't excuse what he's doing to you. You could lose your career, your reputation, everything. I know, but if I destroy him the same way he's threatening to destroy me, what does that make me? It makes you someone who protected herself against a serious threat. Or it makes me part of the problem. Harper sighed. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about trying something crazy, something that probably won't work, but might save both of us. Savannah, please be careful. This kid has already shown he's willing to cross major lines. After hanging up, Savannah spent the next 3 hours crafting the most important email of her life. Not to Principal Williams, not to the police, but to Derek Anderson himself. Derek, she wrote, I know about the videos they made of your mother. I know why you learned to create deepfakes. I know you're not the monster you're pretending to be. Can we talk, really talk before tomorrow's deadline? I think we can help each other. She hit send at 11:47 p.m. The response came at 6:32 a.m. Parking lot, 7 a.m. Come alone. Savannah arrived at Jefferson High's empty parking lot as the first hints of dawn painted the sky pink and orange. Derek was already there, leaning against his truck, arms crossed, even in the early morning light. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes. "You read my files," he said without preamble. "I did. All of them. Enough to understand why you're doing this." Derek laughed bitterly. "You understand. You think finding some old forum posts means you understand 3 years of hell." "No," Savannah said quietly. "I think it means you understand 3 years of hell. And that's exactly why you know this isn't the answer." For the first time since she'd met him, Derek's confident mask slipped completely. His face crumpled, and for a moment he looked exactly like what he was, a 17-year-old boy carrying too much pain. "They destroyed her," he whispered. "My mom. She couldn't go anywhere without people staring, whispering. She lost 2 jobs because of those videos. We almost lost our house." "I know. And nobody helped us. Nobody cared. The police said there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. The school said it happened online, so it wasn't their problem. We were completely alone." Savannah took a step closer. "You're not alone now." Derek's eyes snapped up to meet hers. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I have a choice to make. And I'm choosing to help you instead of destroying you." "Why?" His voice was raw with suspicion and hope in equal measure. "Because hurt people hurting people is how this cycle continues forever. Someone has to choose differently." Derek stared at her for a long moment. "You could end me right now. You have enough evidence to put me in jail." "Yes. But you won't. Not if you help me with something." "What?" Savannah pulled out her phone and opened a presentation she had been working on all night. "I want us to work together on something for the school. An assembly about artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and cyberbullying. Real education about this technology and its impact." Derek's eyebrows shot up. "You want me to help you teach about the thing I just threatened you with? I want you to help me prevent other kids from going through what you went through, and from becoming what you almost became. What if I say no? What if I just release the video anyway?" Savannah met his gaze steadily. "Then you'll prove you're not the person I think you are. You'll prove you really have become the monster they tried to turn you into." Derek's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. For a terrifying moment, Savannah thought he was going to upload the fake video out of spite. Instead, he opened his files and began deleting. "There," he said, his voice barely audible. "It's gone. All of it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I've been a complete bastard to you for weeks." "Yes, you have. But trauma responses aren't the same as character flaws. One we can work with. The other we can't." Derek wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "How do you know so much about digital forensics anyway? You're an English teacher." Savannah smiled. "I'm an English teacher with a computer science minor, and a brother who started a tech company focused on detecting fake content. I've spent more hours analyzing manipulated media than most people spend watching television." "So you could tell my video was fake?" "Immediately. The facial mapping was impressive for amateur work. But there were inconsistencies in the lighting and unnatural micro-expressions around the eyes. Plus, the metadata was completely wrong for the supposed source." Derek actually smiled. "You're kind of terrifying. You know that. Good. That'll come in handy when we present to the whole school." 2 weeks later, Jefferson High's auditorium was packed. Principal Williams had initially been skeptical about the joint presentation. But when Savannah explained the educational value without revealing Derek's personal involvement in deepfake creation, he had agreed. "Good morning, everyone," Savannah began, standing at the podium with Derek beside her. "Today, we're going to talk about something that affects all of you: artificial intelligence, fake content, and digital responsibility." The students looked intrigued but restless, the way teenagers always did during assemblies. That changed when Derek stepped forward. "How many of you have seen a video online and wondered if it was real?" he asked. About half the hands in the auditorium went up. "How many of you have shared something online without checking if it was true?" More hands, along with some uncomfortable shifting. "And how many of you have ever been hurt by something fake that someone posted about you?" The energy in the room shifted completely. Dozens of hands went up, slowly, reluctantly. "That's what we're here to talk about," Derek continued, "because this technology isn't just some distant future thing. It's here, it's accessible, and it's being used to hurt people right now." Savannah took over, walking the students through examples of deepfake technology, how to spot manipulated content, and the legal consequences of creating fake media. But the real power came when Derek spoke about the human impact. 3 years ago," he said, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly, "someone I love was targeted with fake videos, convincing ones. It destroyed her reputation, cost her jobs, and nearly broke our family." The auditorium was completely silent now. "I learned to create this technology thinking I could fight back. But you know what I learned instead: when you fight monsters, you risk becoming a monster yourself, and when you use the same weapons that hurt you to hurt others, you're not healing. You're just spreading the infection." A student near the front raised her hand. "So what do we do? How do we protect ourselves?" "You learn," Savannah answered. "You educate yourselves about this technology. You think before you share. You support victims instead of participating in harassment. And you remember that behind every screen is a real person with real feelings." After the presentation, something unexpected happened. Students began approaching Derek, some in tears, sharing their own stories of online harassment, fake content, and digital bullying. What had started as an educational assembly became an impromptu support group. Maya Rodriguez, a quiet sophomore, whispered to Derek about deep-fake videos someone had made of her at a party she'd never attended. James Chen described having his face edited onto embarrassing memes that followed him across social media platforms. Sarah Williams talked about having fake chat screenshots created to make it look like she was spreading rumors. Derek listened to each story with growing horror and determination. By the end of the day, he had volunteered to help start a digital literacy club focused on detecting and combating fake content. "You've created a monster," Harper told Savannah a week later as they watched Derek patiently teach a group of freshmen how to reverse image search. "A monster who fights other monsters." That was the idea. Principal Williams is talking about expanding this program district-wide. The school board wants you and Derek to present at the state education conference. Savannah watched Derek carefully explaining metadata analysis to a student who had been victimized by deepfake technology. Sometimes the best way to heal from trauma is to help others avoid the same trap. And sometimes reformed villains make the best heroes, Harper added. 6 months later, Savannah stood in front of an audience of educators from across Texas. Beside her, Derek had traded his defensive swagger for genuine confidence built on purpose rather than pain. The future of education isn't just about teaching traditional subjects. Savannah told the crowd. It's about preparing students for a world where the line between real and artificial is increasingly blurred. We need digital literacy as much as we need reading literacy. Derek nodded. And we need to teach empathy alongside technology. Because the most dangerous thing about artificial intelligence isn't that it can create fake videos. It's that it can make us forget there are real humans on the other side of every screen. In the audience, a teacher raised her hand. This partnership between you two is remarkable. How did it develop? Savannah and Derek exchanged a look. They had agreed never to share the specific details of their conflict, protecting Derek's privacy while still acknowledging their growth. Sometimes, Savannah said carefully, the people who challenge us most are the ones who teach us most. Derek and I started as adversaries, but we discovered we were fighting the same fight from different sides. The real enemy, Derek added, was never each other. It was the systems and technologies that pit people against each other instead of bringing them together. After their presentation, as they packed up their materials, Derek turned to Savannah. Can I ask you something? Of course. That night, when you emailed me instead of turning me in, were you scared I'd just release the video anyway? Savannah considered the question. Terrified. Then why did you risk it? Because I've seen what happens when we choose fear over faith, revenge over redemption. My brother's company failed because people were too afraid to trust that others could change. I didn't want to be part of that pattern. Derek nodded slowly. I think about that choice a lot. What would have happened if you'd just destroyed me instead? You would have been destroyed. I would have been safe, and nothing would have changed. The cycle would have continued. And now, Savannah looked around the conference center, where educators were discussing digital literacy programs, peer support networks, and trauma-informed approaches to technology education. Now we're part of the solution instead of just casualties of the problem. As they walked toward the parking garage, Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Maya Rodriguez. The Digital Literacy Club just got approved for a state grant. We're going to help 3 other schools start their own programs. Derek showed Savannah the message. You know what the crazy part is. What? 6 months ago, I would have used my tech skills to hurt people. Now I'm using the same skills to protect them. Same knowledge. Completely different application. That's what redemption looks like, Savannah said. Not becoming a different person, but becoming the best version of who you already are. Derek was quiet for a moment. I never thanked you properly. For what? For seeing who I could be instead of just who I was. Savannah smiled. You don't need to thank me for that. You earned it by choosing to become that person. As they reached their cars, Derek paused. One more question. Shoot. Do you think we would have been friends if we'd met under different circumstances? Savannah considered this. Honestly, probably not. We might have been friendly, but we wouldn't have understood each other the way we do now. Sometimes it takes conflict to create real connection. Adversity reveals character, Derek quoted, and choice defines it. Savannah finished. They said goodbye and drove off in different directions, but their partnership had created ripples that would extend far beyond Jefferson High School. Derek was planning to study computer science with a focus on ethical AI development. Savannah had been offered a position developing digital literacy curriculum for the state education department. Most importantly, they had proven something that seemed increasingly rare in a divided world, that people on opposite sides of a conflict could choose understanding over victory. healing over revenge, and collaboration over destruction. The most powerful response to artificial intelligence, creating fake humanity. They had learned, was authentic human connection, creating real healing. In a world where technology moved faster than wisdom, where artificial intelligence could create any reality imaginable, the greatest defense remained the oldest one. People choosing to see the humanity in each other, even when that humanity was hidden beneath layers of pain and poor choices. The story of the young teacher and the bullying student had become something neither of them expected, a blueprint for breaking cycles of harm and building something better in their place. And in classrooms across Texas, teachers were learning new ways to prepare students not just for the jobs of the future, but for the very human challenge of remaining human in an increasingly artificial world. Savannah Miller stood in her new office at the Texas Education Agency, reviewing reports from schools across the state that had implemented the digital literacy program she and Derek had developed. The numbers were staggering: a 67% reduction in reported cyberbullying incidents, a 43% increase in students seeking help for online harassment, and most remarkably, a 72% improvement in students' ability to identify manipulated media. But beyond the statistics were the individual stories that made her work meaningful. Lincoln Middle School in Houston reported that their peer counseling program, modeled after Derek's approach, had helped 17 students deal with deepfake harassment. Roosevelt High in San Antonio had prevented 3 potential suicide attempts by students who had been targeted with fake content, thanks to early intervention protocols developed from their research. Her phone rang. It was Derek, calling from Stanford University, where he was finishing his freshman year in computer science. "Did you see the MIT study?" he asked without preamble. "The one about deepfake detection in teenagers. Just finished reading it. They cited our work 12 times. Savannah, 12 times. Our little Jefferson High presentation is being referenced in major academic research." Savannah smiled. How does it feel to be a published expert on digital ethics at 18? Weird, but good weird. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Professor Martinez wants to invite you to speak at our symposium on AI and education next month. They're specifically interested in your model of turning perpetrators into educators. I'll check my calendar. How are your classes going? Amazing, challenging. Sometimes I can't believe I'm here. Derek's voice grew quieter. Sometimes I think about where I'd be if you hadn't made that choice that morning in the parking lot. But Savannah had heard variations of this conversation before, but Derek still seemed to need reassurance that his transformation was real and lasting. "You'd have figured it out eventually," she said. "You're too smart and too fundamentally decent to have stayed on that path forever." "Maybe, but I might have destroyed a lot of people first, including myself." Through her office window, Savannah could see high school students walking past on their way to the state capitol for a field trip. Many of them were probably carrying phones capable of creating convincing deepfakes. But thanks to the educational programs now required in Texas schools, they also carried the knowledge to use that technology responsibly. "Derek, can I ask you something I've always wondered about?" "Sure." "That night when you decided to threaten me with the deepfake, what pushed you over the edge? What made you go from typical teenage rebellion to digital warfare?" Derek was quiet for so long that Savannah wondered if the call had dropped. Savannah thought about the hundreds of students who had benefited from Derek's choice to become something else. Maya Rodriguez was now studying cybersecurity at University of Texas. James Chen had started a nonprofit focused on supporting victims of digital harassment. Sarah Williams was working with lawmakers to strengthen anti-deepfake legislation. Savannah smiled and typed back, "Not disaster, foundation." As the sun set over Austin, Savannah reflected on how profoundly her life had changed since that terrifying morning when Derek Anderson had threatened to destroy her career. She had thought she was just trying to survive her first year of teaching. Instead, she had stumbled into her life's work.